call this meeting to order, and we'll do some introductions. We'll start on my left.
Dean Gates, Assistant Council.
Barbara Jones, Municipal Clerk's Office.
Gina Ashman, Interpreter.
Amanda Moser, Clerk's Office.
Forrest Dunbar.
Pete Peterson, Chair. And so we'll start with new business. Let's have a vote by mail update. I think this would be where Amanda comes in.
Thank you. Okay, done sneezing. Thank you. Through the chair, the clerk's office just wanted to do sort of a high-level overview of the vote by mail project, sort of in two parts. First, we wanted to give you an update on how we are doing getting to the April 2018 election, and then an update on our mock election, which we spoke about last month.
Hot or cold makes no difference.
So I'm going to start with our April 2018 election, and and I'm just sort of going to run through some of the different components that we're working on, and I think Barbara's going to chime in as I go through if there's other things that I'm missing. So a large part of our vote by mail project is the signature solution. So we need to make sure that we are able to confirm all of our qualified registered voters are the ones that have returned the ballots that are sent to them, and the way to do that is to compare the signature from the 2018 election against a signature that we have on file. The clerk's office had saved the precinct registers from the 2015 runoff election, the 2016 and the 2017 regular elections, and we have workers who've been working on this project for about the last 2 months maybe. And so an update on the project is that at this point, all of the precinct register pages have been scanned, 2015, 2016, 2017. And now our workers are going through sort of slow, arduous process where they have to, the machines have scanned and captured the signatures, but they have to confirm that it's a signature that they've captured and not, like a note that we have in the precinct registers. And the workers have completed, up until, as of this morning, precinct 920 of 2015. We anticipate that they will be complete with the 2015 either the end of the day today or midday tomorrow. At that point, we are going to run a few more processes on the back end before starting 2016 and 2017. So it is, I think when we started this project, we knew that it would be a time-lengthy process. I think we had no idea that we would, I think we maybe were a little bit more optimistic that we would be done by now, and I think that specifically the signature review and sort is really taking significant amount of time. Yeah. But we have been working with a variety of different workers, and we have people working on this project up to 12 hours a day, which has really made a difference. We have a worker who comes in the morning and then a worker that works the afternoon. And because it is such monotonous work, you really can't have somebody there. Like 6 hours is sort of like the cutoff point where you just lose productivity. So we're trying to split it between multiple workers.
So there's a couple of good news stories about this project, and the best news is that the state of Alaska has agreed to use our software, and they are going to be down. They've already done one visit to the election center, and all of their poll books or registers from the 2016 general election, which had a very high turnout. It's the most current election with the highest turnout. They are going to scan those registers and those signatures. So the thing about that's important is we think that we are going to have a very high percentage of signatures captured for the April 2018 election, which is good for all of us.
So we will, after all of these have been scanned, just to sort of what Barbara's saying is, we will be able to identify voters who have participated in the last couple of elections, what percentage of signatures we have on file. And the next part of this process that the clerk's office is going to do is we are going to send out a mailer and try and capture a few additional signatures, but we think that we're going to be at a point where voters who have participated in some form in the last 3+ years, we will have some signature for them. And that really puts us in a good spot for feeling comfortable with the signature.
Mr. Trainee?
Amanda, you're gonna try and look at the 3 signatures, we got 3, to make sure the signature's consistent? Because you remember we were talking about if people sign it differently one time, are we gonna try and look at that to see if there's consistency in those 3 elections,
I am
how
not
they sign?
I am not sure what level of review we will do on those, but I know that we'll be able to capture multiple signatures. So when we're looking at the signatures during the 2018 election, if there's multiple signatures on file, we'll be able to compare against those. And so maybe there has been a little bit of shift in the signature, but we have multiple signatures on file. They'll be able to look at those.
Okay, good, thank you.
So our machine is going to be programmed to do that. They know that it should be able to do that in advance. That was one of the requirements that we asked in the RFP, or
Actually, that's a manual process.
Manual?
So
Really?
it is. We could make it, so there's a couple of decisions that you could make. So some jurisdictions have a signature on file, and then they have the signature on the envelope. And they can make a computer decision,
The computer
like
makes a decision.
a percentage. And so let's say it's 18% is one of the numbers that I heard.
18?
So they have data points, and so if there's an 18% match, it counts. We're not doing that. We're having a body review each one. So this worker says, 2 signatures, I know my training match. Next one, match. Next one, no match. Supervisor has to review. So that is, we are not having the computer review signatures. We are doing that all manually.
And when there's a not match and it goes to the supervisor review, I think it's at that point that they're able to look at the other signatures that are also on file.
so if we got to the point where we were handling state elections and had tens of hundreds of thousands of those to review, we'd almost have to have it done by computer, wouldn't we? Or
So
I think the percentage, you know what the percentage is, how many can one worker review? It's very high.
the way that it's set up on the screen is that here's your screen. There's 3 sets of signatures on each screen, and it's current election signature on file. And so the workers will look from left to right, boom, boom, boom. These are all matches. They send all 3 of these to approval. This one is a not match. They just mark this one. It goes to supervisor for review. So because you have 3 on the screen at a time, and you're just looking from left to right, a worker is able to review about 250 signatures an hour. So we talk a lot about King County, and King County is by no means, it's apples to oranges to both Anchorage elections and the state of Alaska, because they have
I'm sorry, 250 an hour? It doesn't seem like a lot.
250 signatures per worker per hour.
Dude, that's a lot.
That's what,
It's what, 4 a minute? It seems 250 per hour. 250 signatures. I'm doing the math here wrong?
So that's like reviewing ones that are both okay and not okay.
Okay. 4 a minute. But it's you're spending almost 15 seconds on every signature pair.
Which I think you would want. Our training is going to include looking for various points. So you do want to spend some time
Yeah.
to confirm that this is the same signature. Because our workers are not going to be just looking for one thing. There's multiple data points that they're confirming.
Mr. Cheney?
Okay.
How many supervisors do you have per worker? You said that if they have a violation, they send it to the supervisor. How many supervisors are going to have per worker?
So this is all done in the system. So there's going to be a queue that's waiting for supervisor review. So it doesn't need to happen. There's not a supervisor who's waiting to get stuff. We have workers go through signatures all day, and then at the midday, the supervisor starts going through them, and they're just waiting in the queue. And this is all on the computer screen, and all of these envelopes are part of the Bell and Howell system, and they're just being continuously running through the loop, and they're not getting pulled out as completed because they're still under review.
How
We have
many?
the supervisors there, Election Central to do this, or are they somewhere else? We have to send it to them, or how you operate with that?
They're going to be at the election center.
What? How many election workers will you have reviewing signatures?
Four.
So what, we have 4 stations, 4 adjudication stations, signature adjudication stations. One of those might be a supervisor. So those workers, the supervisor could be reviewing signatures with the other, but then the supervisor could be getting the ones that need further review.
So how many votes did we get in the last mayoral?
So I
election?
think the other thing to think about too is that we are mailing ballots out 3 weeks before the election, and this process is going to start at that point. So
Right.
we are going to we're not reviewing everything within a day, and as stuff comes back, it
So
starts
it's
through
not
the
like
process.
precinct election where it's all done in one day.
Yeah.
You got this mass crowd.
But still, how many do we have? How many votes about did we have in the 2015 mayoral election?
75,000.
75,000. So if you've got 4 workers, you're doing about 1,000 an hour then. So it's 75 hours of work. And you said that we're going to,
So we take basically 10 days at 8,000 a day, 7.5 days.
well, we're only doing 6,000 a day, right? Because we're only doing 6 hours, you said, at a time?
Oh,
That's a different
procedure.
procedure.
Okay. So if you did the full 8 hours, yeah, 8,000 a day. Yeah, so it's about 10 days of continuous work.
Which is what we anticipate that we will receive the bulk of stuff back about 5 days before the election, and then up to 3 days afterwards.
You are right, Pete, though. If we wanted to scale this up to the state, we're talking, what do they get, like 250,000 votes?
But I don't
in
think
election?
that's part.
And the state, remember, the state has much, much longer to certify. You know,
Right.
the election, they have so much more time.
We could hire
So,
much more workers.
yeah.
And I think, so this specific conversation that we're having right now is for the 2018 election. Like what we're doing to prepare for the 2018.
Yeah.
So I think although we have at some level talked about sharing our space with the state and stuff like that, we are specifically working on our procedures and having the discussion of how we're prepared for the 2018 election.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
You know,
Eating
we
an
get over the
elephant.
first hurdle, then they can raise the hurdle a little higher, and then we can see if we can get over that one later.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions about the signature verification?
No, I guess it's just, so we still get a majority, you still anticipate that we're going to get a big surge at the end, right? A lot of people will vote on election day.
When we've looked at data from other jurisdictions, it's the Friday before the Tuesday of Election Day, that Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday is, yes, the biggest push.
it's like the restaurant business, it's rush hour.
Yeah.
Oh, so actually, let me think about this then. Do you have to do this verification process before you count a vote, even in a preliminary tally? Does that mean that basically there's going to be like functionally no election central on Tuesday night? Because you're going to have to verify tens of thousands of these. It's going to take days and days. So how can you have data to put up on the screen for people to know if they won
We're
or
going to
not?
start this review when we start receiving things back. So on election night at 8 p.m., 8:05, we are going to release the results of what has made it through this process. So everything that has been returned, signature verified, ballot removed from the envelope, and tabulated will be uploaded at 8:05.
But, okay.
But there will not be additional results coming in throughout the night. We will do one upload of what is
At 8
made.
o'clock.
So it might not make sense to have an election central because it's just going to be one.
We've killed an Alaskan tradition. That's okay, though.
That's happened already.
Yeah, you know what? It's some things are collateral damage.
It's been dwindling the last few years anyway, it seems to me.
Does King County for election central?
They don't do anything. They just put up the results
They
and
save money.
go home. I mean, we spend about,
Well, it's about $3,000 for election
Hire
central.
more workers.
No, it's not that. Even if the Democrats did a private election central on into 2016 at Willowa, which turned into something of a, what's that term? Well, wake. But, yeah. And it's just interesting to know. So people will have to know that. So we'll get some percentage done. You'll have counted a bunch from before. So there'll be probably about 20% or 30% of all votes will drop on that night. Something like
I think
that.
we don't
know the answer to that.
Because, it's, I think it's from the 21st day. So yeah, we could get something on, election minus 20 the next day. We could start getting ballots the next day.
Yeah.
But we just don't know what that number is going to be between, we're going to have our absentee, our accessible vote centers are going to be open the week before.
Right.
So we're going to have ballots from there too.
So we might have even more. We might have a real big chunk that's already sent in. Because I know as soon as I get my ballot, I'm probably going to fill it out and mail it in. And some other people will probably do that.
I'll probably drop mine in the drop box.
We've been talking throughout the entire process, and all of our messaging encourages voters to vote early and return their ballot, because on our end and on the election administration, we're concerned about people who make mistakes, don't sign it, we don't have a signature on file. So we want to be able to start solving those problems way in advance of election day. So we are going to strongly encourage voters to
Most elections, even if you just got 20%, but certainly if you got like 50% of the votes, you would know the result. Like as soon as you got that initial drop, it'll be a relatively small number of elections that
So
are
we'll
close enough.
be encouraging people to vote early, but not often.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually have a couple of questions. I know we're gaining on the signatures, and don't remember that we talked about this before or not, but has anyone considered some of our stakeholders having signing parties where people who don't typically vote, could show up and sign their signature so that we could scan it? Is that something anyone has considered?
So, through the chair, we've worked on a mailer that we're going to send out to folks, and that way we can confirm by the voter providing an identifier that it's the correct voter, and we'll include those in it. So we are going to, once we've completed the scan project and sort of identified the gaps, at that point we will send out a flyer. And the flyer will have a dual purpose: one, to just as part of the education campaign, and then the second is to get that signature.
And we've gotten a price on that. That's the gap that Amanda talked about before, the uploaded signatures that we've got, and then voters who participated in the last 4 years or so. And we are guesstimating that number is maybe about 10,000 voters. So that's who the mailing will go to.
Okay. And then, so are we planning to pick up from the drop boxes more than one time on election day? Seeing as how that might be the day, since we're pushing the deadline, that people who procrastinate might actually be dropping their ballots more often.
We have a procedure right now, our Dropbox pickup procedure, and we are going to be there at 8 o'clock. We have our Dropboxes teams that'll be there at 8 o'clock. But I don't think we had talked about having a team pickup earlier in the day.
But we did this year. I mean, we had our team
our
pickup.
regular.
Yeah.
So we had our morning pickup, and then we had our 8 o'clock p.m. closing. So that will probably do the same. The Dropboxes are so big that I don't think we're ever going to fill one up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just a thought that I had as we were discussing this.
So,
How many ballots can it hold?
Well, the thing is probably like about this big.
It's 3.5 feet tall or something.
Yeah,
I saw the demo at the election center,
yeah.
but I have the capacity.
Gosh, I have
we
no
could
idea.
get information on that.
Yeah, we could.
Thousands.
So if we can continue with our update, so we talked about the signatures. We've been doing a lot of work with the election center. We have continue to work on the floor plan and layout for how we are going to use the space for our vote by mail elections. And that's really helpful too when we have our conversation about our procedures. I think they kind of go hand in hand, like the layout drives the procedures and the procedures drive the layout. And we are identifying additional equipment that we may need, tables, chairs, computers. And so we are making those final purchases this fall, so that is all ready to go. A big component of this is staffing. Our small working group has been meeting weekly to discuss the different roles that we have identified and of our workers that have been working with us the last couple elections, who is a good fit where. So it's sort of like a very complex chessboard of moving people around. And we are continuing to do that. We are beginning to do a little bit of outreach to some of our election day workers because we have some gaps that we need to start filling in. So we need to find folks that have, payroll experience or have experience with mail sorting equipment and stuff like that, so we can fill in some of these other gaps that we have.
I just wanted to say for the record that Mr. Croft has joined us.
Thank you.
Mr. Train.
I understand Eagle Scouts going to do projects. Painting, when's that going to happen?
We got an update this morning from our project manager, and the Eagle Scout will be in at the end of July as everyone knows, we have the Yellow Brick Road, which we had painter's tape laid down this year, and we have a sturdier, thicker tape that will be laid out, and that really drives how the public is able to access the election center.
Once it's all done, get us a name, Amanda, so we can give a resolution from the assembly.
Okay.
I'd like you recognizing them for their efforts.
Would you like the clerk's office to prepare that resolution
would,
too?
please.
Okay.
I just want to give them enough publicity. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I just had a thought, is this yellow tape won't be slick so that people would slip in any way, would it?
It's designated tape. It's like if you've been to a warehouse before and you see yellow caution tape on the floor, it's specifically designed for that.
Okay.
Speaking of painting, are we going to paint the drop boxes some particular color? Are we going to brand them in any way?
Oh, they are branded.
They're
Yeah.
yellow or something like that?
They're
Is that-
white, but they have our logo and our branding on them.
Nice.
So, Forrest, if you look on your way out, there's a logo on the clerk's door, and you have the same logo down in the assembly conference room, and it's just a stick-on. We had the same company do the logos on the drop boxes.
Mr. Gates?
Will there be wheelchair accessibility? I remember visiting the center, there's stairs out both doors. So, what's some plan to at least
Yeah.
lift the wheelchair up?
Great question. We've been working with our project manager and a contractor to install a ramp into there, and we anticipate it'll be installed by the end of the month. So that's part of tenant improvements, and there's a few other things at the election center beyond the equipment and supplies I talked about. We would like to add some striping to the parking lot just to drive. We have a lot more usage of that parking lot during elections, and we want to make sure that folks know where to park, along with our Eagle Scouts also going to work on spreading gravel. We had a muddy mess back behind the election center during election night. One of our workers had mud up to her knees practically when she
Pretty spooky along the road.
yeah. So we are still working on a few other little projects. Did I capture everything for the election center?
Security.
Oh,
So
good.
our security company's been selected. Guardian Security should be installing I believe we have 8 and up to 16 cameras. We have the video monitor that's going to be there where the security cameras will be displayed. We have a couple of other security issues we're working on, a couple of mirrors that are going to be installed, and I think that's about it.
And we're getting a new lock installed on the front door.
Oh, right, a
So-
cipher lock on
So
the
that
front door.
folks,
And so are the cameras all interior focused, or are there some maybe at the entrance that someone could look at to make sure that there's not someone with bad intentions trying to figure out a way to get into our election center?
We have the capacity to, so there's a little vestibule right out there in the front of the space. And we do have the capacity to add one security camera, and we'll have 2 mirrors there. So there should be one there. We do have the capacity to add cameras external to the building, but we haven't made that decision yet.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
So that's election center. We talked about staffing. We have spent about the last week working our way through talking about how we will process voters at the Accessible Vote Center. We had a painful but good meeting this morning where we were sort of able to finally identify that, and this really drives a lot of other components of this project. Are we going to have ballots on demand, or are we going to have ballot stock? Are voters going to be using the same envelopes that we've mailed in, or question ballot envelopes? And I think Barbara and I and Jackie and the project manager sort of worked through all that, and we came up with some really good decisions, which will help us be able to make some purchases of the ballot printers, along with drive our procedures, which sort of is my next component. We have, as part of our stakeholders group, which formed in the summer of 2015, we had subcommittees. We had a procedures subcommittee, technical advisory subcommittee, and an education and outreach subcommittee. Barbara is the lead on the procedures subcommittee, and she called in everybody for a meeting this morning. So we have begun the process of going through. Our project manager sort of gave us an outline of where we need to have procedures, and now we're able to work on each of those components. And it is very much like eating an elephant, and each of those little components is a bite.
So one of the things, just so you know about procedures, and I'm sure you all get this in all of your various tasks that you do, we have the Bell and Howell system and we have the Dominion system, and each of those systems, they have a user guide and a manual, and we've been trained and we can follow it. But the issue is always the handoff. It's what do you do from after you sort those and the signature doesn't match? What do you do with that envelope? And how do we account for it? Because now it's outside the system.
Right.
And so that's what our focus is on procedures, is to make sure that our hand to the system and then our hand off the system are accurate. We just have a great team, and we're on schedule to be working on these procedures now.
So I know you've got different colored boxes. Are you creating a different color for the ones that signatures didn't match or something?
Yes, so the color coding has, Amanda has used color coding throughout her time in elections. So if we get a batch of envelopes and we run them through the Bell and Howell system, there's a first pass and a fine sort. But let's say we run them through the Bell and Howell system on first pass, and they are going to be in a white tray for first pass. Let's say, then the signature adjudicator says good signature, good signature, good signature. And it's telling the system that barcode on that envelope is a good signature. But this one is a bad signature, no signature. So again, the adjudicator is telling the system. So we take all of those envelopes that are in that white bucket and run them through on fine sort. And on fine sort, all of those good signatures go in a certain bin. All of the bad signatures go in different bins. Those come out of the bin into a red tray. The good ones go into a green tray. So yes, the system is doing it all for us. We just have to make sure that we pick them up and put them in the right color tray. But now the tray is identified for everyone. We know not to open that envelope. We know not to count that ballot because it's in a red tray.
Okay, great.
So I mentioned that we had the subcommittees with the stakeholders group, and the other one is the voter outreach and education subcommittee, and we've been working on that a lot in our office too with our small project team. We have created a 4-minute, a 90-second, a 60-second, and a 30-second spot, and we are working with the AFD Video Training Center to put together those small PSAs. We will then begin pushing them out both on our social media along with starting probably December 2017, making some media buys and getting that out to the public.
Mr. Trainee?
And then if you want, I'll go to TV stations and see if they run this PSAs for us.
Great, that would be
I
awesome.
know a lot of the people at TV stations more than happy to do that for you.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. So we are going to put together, we're also working on just a little bit more comprehensive plan about both TV, radio, direct mailers. We have part of the contract with our ballot and producer includes a mail out 90 days before that is we can use for education outreach along with encouraging voters to make any updates needed to their file. So that is, unless I missed anything, sort of our comprehensive update on the 2018 election as we transition with the Vote by Mail project.
So are you ready to start talking about the mock election? Is that something that Ms. Jones is going to cover for us? Or
Well, we can if we're ready to transition. Do you have any other questions about 2018 April vote by mail?
Yeah.
Mr. Croft?
So, cybersecurity, I know you guys have thought it out and I've heard you speak about it, but people are starting to ask me with all that's going on. So give me the thumbnail answer on why we can feel secure that this is not, you've discussed physical security and procedures, but
Yeah.
the cybersecurity that comes with the system or that you guys have done.
Both the Bell and Howell system along with the ballot tabulation system are air-gapped, so they are not on any network. Anything that needs to be uploaded to it is SneakerNet, walked over, and through a jump drive.
Unhooked, literally.
Unhooked.
You can't get
And
on.
part of the design that we have in the election center is that all of the wires are exposed, and so you can see in the room where the internet is, the blue wires around the outside, and in the part of the room where the Bell and Howell system is with the signature, there's no internet over there. And then over where the tabulation system is, that is also completely off the network. And
And the old system that we're coming off of and the state uses, are those ballot machines hooked up electronically? They don't send in, you bring in a chip, a
memory
thing.
card.
Oh, what you're dying.
I think one of the ways that the alleged cyber attacks we're trying to do is, before the election occurred, get into the voter registration files, and then you can just do things like alter people's middle names to the point where their ballots get rejected.
Right.
But do we have a way to prevent that?
So that system is not on the internet. We get a export from the state Division of Elections of qualified registered voters. We get 2 of them 45 days before the election and 30 days before the election. That is then put on a computer that is not on the internet, standalone computer, and we have the GIS process that we run through that information, and then SneakerNet that export back over to the Bell and Howell system.
Amanda, I do think some of that is going to be using our SFTP site.
What we get from the state will come through on that.
Right, and then, we have the SFTP site, and so the S, my understanding is that it stands for secure. The data is encrypted. We have it through the MOA. Dick and Elvie
we
met
set that
with IT to get this set up. It's a pilot project, but the city has very strict cyber security rules that we have in place. And the data is coming from the state to us, so the state has pretty secure rules as well. But the interesting thing about having the data come this way over the secure FTP site is, in the past, what we've done is we pick up a disk from the Division of Elections and we drive it over here. And so the risk is similar if there was a car accident and the disk was lost, or someone was carjacked or something like that. So far, everyone is on board with the SFTP site. That, I understand, that's the data that's a concern. The data is also supposed to be encrypted. Some of this is, and then my understanding is after GIS does its work, then we have a separate secure FTP site with our vendor, Bell and Howell, and then the data is uploaded to that site for Bell and Howell. So there are a couple of, spots there, but I believe the data only survives on those FTP sites for 7 days. It's not up there any longer than 7 days, and we may be able to delete it even quicker than that.
So the short answer to his point, though, is, I'm sorry, Dean, we're secure, or we can describe the ways we're secure, but to the extent that they're able to corrupt the data that the state has, we don't have any control over that. We take what they have and take it as it is, and then we have various procedures to protect it.
Yeah, and I think we use the SFTP sites as a transfer site. So the data isn't in those sites and hanging out there. We use it to get the data from the state, and then we pull it off that site and we put it on an air-gapped computer to be able to do the GIS process. And then when we're done with that, then we put it on the Bell and Howell system and push it out that way. But stuff isn't stored there. I mean, it's there for 7 days in case if we need to pull it again, but it's a transfer site.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah, it seems like for cybersecurity, the area that's most vulnerable is internal, not external. And what I mean is the humans that have access to the system. So we have some protocols for the election workers that have access to the area where you could insert a thumb drive or virus or something.
Background checks, everything.
Yeah.
We don't do background checks for our election workers because to be an election worker, you have to be a registered voter. And if you're a registered voter, the likelihood that you have a felony conviction and have had it discharged is very low. So we're saving $25 for all of our workers, which is pretty. I just think the risk is low, but I do think we could probably do a little bit more for some type of an agreement from our workers. But I think more importantly, we were talking this morning, almost all of our procedures where you have data or ballots, it's a two-person job. We have two people that are transporting ballots from one place to the next or signing ballots from me to you. So there's always some chain of custody that we're doing that is, I think so far, pretty good.
And to sort of add to what Barbara's saying, the SFTP site, Barbara and I are the only ones that have access to that from our elections, and other workers will not be given access to that. But I think that and I know that we should have brought the floor plan in.
Yep.
A lot of the areas where the systems are, they are in secure cages. And so this,
I just happen to think of one other, potential. Are we having any Wi-Fi connections over at the election center? Because I've heard that people can steal Wi-Fi passwords and get information from that way. And so we haven't talked that you were doing have Wi-Fi there, and you may not need it.
I don't think that is I think that even if you did have Wi-Fi, there's no way you could get into our air gap systems. I don't know the answer to that with respect to the FTP sites, but I'm going to ask our project manager that question, because I think that's probably a question that we need an answer to.
Okay, great, thank you.
So,
Ms. Moser?
other questions about the 2018 election?
Good question, Eric.
I have questions about the November 2018 election, but not about the April.
Okay, so we can talk a little bit about the mock election. So I think the first thing that we need to talk about with the mock election is that we had talked about September 19th. We are going to delay that until we're looking at November 10th. Is that right?
So
November 10th is the first Tuesday in November.
We had talked about September, and then we talked about October, which is what's on the agenda. And between when the agenda was sent out last Thursday and today, it has been bumped again.
Our vendor, Bell and Howell, has asked for an extension again. And so I will tell you that we had a 2-hour meeting with Bell and Howell on Monday. And it was very interesting. We had our project manager and 2 other people from RDI were present. And the conversation was very good and robust. We're in the weeds talking about the factory acceptance testing and the site acceptance testing. And we're trying to get an agreement on what those both look like. And so the debate is that we have a contract with Bell and Howell to provide X. And so Bell and Howell says, we're going to provide X, but you don't need to tell us how to do X, and that we have to provide X minus 2 at factory acceptance testing. So Dennis agrees. Dennis has two folks from his office, and one of them said, they're right. They shouldn't have to get too far in the weeds on the factory acceptance testing. They have a contract to provide X, and they said they're going to do it by September or the 1st of October. So we had a payment due to them, and Dennis is in the process of negotiating, but we're going to be withholding a bunch of money. They're not going to get their money that they were due because they're a little bit late. And so I think we're in a good place. Dennis is going down to do factory acceptance testing at the end of July. So the system, we know that the physical sorter machine and all of the bins are going to be ready. And then we're going to do site acceptance testing 1 the first week of September. It'll be September 5th through the 8th. And Bell and Howell has told us that the basic functional system will be ready at that time. And so we're good with that. However, some of the add-ons, the custom software that we bought, and we had to buy custom software because we don't have access to the state registration voter database. So basically, Bell and Howell has created our own voter registration database, and that's what they're a little bit behind on. And so they're going to have that complete by the first week of October, or even, is that October? Yeah. So we'll have site acceptance testing too. That still gives us a pretty good cushion before our, drop dead date that this isn't going to work. The meetings were very interesting. I learned a lot. I think they are much farther along than it appears. I think we're going to have a good system when they get here in September and October. The second SAT test too is at no cost to us. They've paid a couple of other things. They've been very good to work with, outside of the fact that they're behind. The programmer's dad died, so I know that that's part of the reason that they're behind, and they appear to have one programmer.
So that bumps, we had at our last vote by mail, or our last ethics and election meeting, we had talked about having the mock election September 19th. We bumped it just based on some things before these delays until October 10th, and then based on these delays from Bell and Howell, we are proposing to bump it until November 14th.
So, as far as the mock election goes, since we bumped it, we are more than on schedule. We have a resolution that's ready to go to you, that's going to talk to you about what it's going to look like. We're probably not going to get that to you until August, I think was the day that we wanted to see it. We can circulate it and ask you to be the sponsors of it before then. But we're just working through, we've got our calendar, we've got people that we're talking to about being involved, we're looking at the issues. We've talked to the administration. The administration is going to get back to us. Our plan is to ask MOA employees to participate. We think that'll be a really, really good test of the system.
And our goal is really to test the system soup to nuts and to test these procedures that we've been working on. And so we want, we're not concerned about the ballot content, and we don't want that to distract from being able to test the sorting system and the tabulation system and the exchanges between the different work groups that are going to be handling the ballot. And we identified using MOA employees and maybe ASD employees because we could do some outreach, some very direct outreach to those employees at little to minimal cost, which we don't have a lot of budget for this mock election. And so we'll be able to do some emails directly to them and also be able to test the signature verification and a lot of those other elements.
So we're pretty excited about it, and we're on schedule. I think some of you know that there has been some discussion about a revenue measure, and we have been in discussions with the administration. I think that a revenue measure this fall is been discussed, but I think that it's probably not likely, is my understanding. But we do know that that's still a wild card out there.
Mr. Trini?
Where's Bell Hall located at?
North Carolina.
Okay. Because I'm going in there to Raleigh, I think, for a conference.
Oh,
I
really?
may drop in and see Bell Hall.
That sounds great, Dick. We'll get you the right contacts.
Thank you. I talked to Ona too about this and told her I'm not interested in having a stress test on this for revenue bond. Because my fear is going to be enough to acceptance if it's going to a vote by mail. And if what you do is have vote by mail and you're doing a revenue issue, people are going to be more suspect of it than ever. We've got to have this thing pulled off successfully in 2018, done on the normal ballot rather than try and have it run early. My fear is the public's not going to trust anything we do if we're trying to run revenue bond through that in a special election, vote by mail.
You think some people might think it was rigged and actually say that? Could you
Some
imagine?
assembly members will on the floor, and I don't want to do that either, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other details or questions about the upcoming mock election that we need to discuss here?
Yeah, no, I'd sort of ask questions surrounding that. Couldn't we use it for some useful purpose? But Amanda and Barbara have convinced me that testing is more, while you might get some interesting information or a good result, testing it and having it work in April is more important. So,
Is the useful purpose.
all right.
Thank you.
Well, in the
This is
phrase
a
that I've heard
future
several
system.
times was we are trying to find places where it'll fail. We want to push it to see if it'll fail. And if you had a legitimate election, for some sort of sales tax or something like that, we obviously would not be wanting that to fail in any way.
Yeah.
And so this way we can stress it, and if there are failures, then we can close those loopholes.
Yeah.
So I think we made the correct decision in this situation.
If I may, I think also with some of these delays that we're experiencing, we don't have the capacity to do anything bigger than a mock election and have it be successful.
And we're thinking about using city employees or school district employees or something.
As
Yeah.
the voters.
So
So you guys will get a ballot.
wow.
exciting.
And we're going to be mailing them in, or there'll be drop boxes, or
Both.
both? Oh, good.
I'm going to do both. I'll warn you right now. So you can catch it.
Yeah.
Great.
Break the
That'll
system.
be great.
I don't want to be accused of fraud, but it's an intentional test.
Put some extra things in your envelope.
You're
Yeah.
planning to vote early and often.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
right. See how it works.
Like Cook County.
All right, are we finished with mock elections? Anything else we can think of? Is there any old business that someone wants to bring up that we didn't completely cover at one of our previous meetings? Mr. Croft?
Yeah, just so Barbara and I and Amanda and I have talked about, I mean, I continue to worry the state's going to break its election system even as we're fixing ours. And I know you guys are doing fabulous stuff. You've been having some meetings with them, and I'm sure you've been providing valuable advice and content to them. Where are they at for the November 18 election?
Well, I think that they are in a good place. We had a meeting yesterday on the state's election policy work group, and I thought the meeting went really well. I think the direction so there's two issues that the state has to address. One is that there has been an issue raised that voters in rural Alaska will not vote by mail. And then the other issue is we need to go to vote by mail. So I think they're in the right place. The leaders of the group yesterday actually discussed Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and California. And I think what they said is you can create the Alaska model. And I think the Alaska model will probably be vote by mail in urban areas, a strong focus to vote by mail in urban areas. But in rural areas, although they'll mail ballots to all voters, they will have absentee location, or what is now called an absentee location, what we call an accessible vote center. In most places, and most likely, it'll be staffed by clerks. So all of the clerks across the state are going to be staffing the state's absentee vote location from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, or whatever their local jurisdiction hours are. So I think that's a pretty interesting model that they're coming up with, but it seems to me that that's probably the direction that they're going to go.
Well, and I don't know, to me that seems backwards or something. I think that voting by mail in rural Alaska, it makes much more sense than having someone ride their snow machine through inclement weather for 20 miles or whatever it is.
Tremendous cost savings out there.
To try to get to vote on election day when they could vote by mail. I don't know. Just my own personal.
So here are
Solution is kind of fun.
here are some of the issues that I think we don't understand. And what I can say is Liz Medicine Crow is the chair of this group, and Natalie Landreth from NARF is a player, and there are other people from rural groups. Their concerns are this. Some people in rural Alaska share a post office box with multiple families. They believe that if one family member knows how you're going to vote, they're just going to trash your ballot. Okay, so that's one issue. Another issue is people's addresses in some villages are the blue house on the right. So that ballot would be undeliverable. So the other one, and then I think
There's a general delivery to the village.
and then I think the third issue is considered a cultural issue, that Alaska Natives may be intimidated by vote by mail and may not vote. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think it's my place to impose a decision on someone. I think that the right thing to do is to and that's the two-part prong. We're going forward looking at vote by mail, but the other prong is outreach and asking people what they want, what would work for them in rural Alaska. And so the proposal or the idea has been this hybrid.
Should we offer to run their November 18 races in Anchorage and free up those machines for the rest of the state?
Well, I'm going to come back to you and say, I don't know the answer to that, but in the policy group meeting, I made it clear that we are a partner with the state. And someone said, well, you know, if the municipality has made this decision, the state is stuck with that decision. And I said, au contraire, you know, we are making decisions with the state as a partner. We're working with them before we make these decisions. I got a communication today that Josie Bonke, the director of elections, said, thank you very much for saying that. But it's true. We're working with them and they're working with us. So that the good news that I'll tell you is that our procedure meeting today, the state's, and I don't know what her title is. What is Carol's position?
Director of absentee, or not, like the lead on absentee and petition office.
So she's the one that mails all the ballots to everybody in the state, all of the absentee ballots. So she's the mail person. She's going to work with us during our election for 4 weeks in April.
So I know we're over time, and I'll do some of this offline, but I think the state is heading to a crash. They're not
crash completely.
right, and it may be in 18, but it's probably in 20, and they're too late for 20 already. I mean, in terms of the process we have done, a 3 to 4 year lag,
Right.
and they're not anywhere near having a consensus on even starting it. But if they started it today, I don't think they could hit 20. So I'm worried about 18, but I really think by 20 they're going to have crashed in a way they don't. Maybe the people operating it understand, but certainly not any level above that, and not the legislature.
You could have 20% or
So,
25%.
so Eric,
Yeah.
I think
And we need to almost help them solve a problem they may or may not know they have yet, or they know but are not adequately dealing with.
So obviously I'm kind of the boots on the ground person. I think you understand, all of you understand better how the legislature moves and how those policies are going to shake out and what are they going to do for money and when that's going to happen. And I agree with you, they are behind the 8 ball. I can keep you posted. My understanding is at the first meeting, they said they thought they could make it to 22 with the equipment.
So I said not 20. Oh, make it with the equipment to 20.
Yeah,
Well, certainly, if we did say, we will for a price conduct vote by mail in Anchorage, you can use all those machines and the memory cards and the things elsewhere. That would extend their ability to do elections the old-fashioned way elsewhere, because we would not be using those Anchorage machines, right? They would have them for Queethluck.
well, the machines are theirs, the memory cards are ours, and they've already asked for the memory cards.
For a price, they can have them, Barbara. We don't.
Right.
Because they're not going to be able to get parts for these machines, and so they're going to have to start cannibalizing machines to keep their elections functioning.
Or the alternative is, and voters hate this, but the alternative is you vote a ballot and you put it in a silver ballot box. And then they fly those ballots to Fairbanks or whatever and count them there. But you know voters hate that because they don't believe that that's real. So Eric, I would like to keep that, and I would like to discuss that with the state. We are always talking with them and working with them. The question I have for you, wouldn't doing a by-mail election in Anchorage require a statute change?
I don't know, but I imagine that's probably true.
Yes, it would.
But
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, we're all going on a trip together and your car's ready and mine's not. You got to be ready for my car to break down, right? You got to be, and you guys have done a great job of keeping your house in order, but I think both, unfairly or not, that crisis is going to be shared.
Yeah.
And so as we get our thing tested and do it in April, I think, politically, we might think about offering. That is, you haven't done it, we will conduct this for you. It has all kinds of political participation ramifications that you guys know, but it also is kind of are you really on top of this or not? And almost a challenge of, if you're not, we warned you, we offered, we said we could do this, and I hope they take us up on it, but even if they don't, we will have then set the stage.
In other words, we're going to tell them, we're not quite sure you understand yet.
That's right.
But I think the point that Eric made that maybe got lost is, yes, it's true the state owns all the machines, but if we allow them to free up the machines in Anchorage, then they can pick and choose the best of the machines.
Okay.
Right?
Or parts
Got it.
salvage
Right,
or all
they
that.
Got it.
cannibalize.
Okay, got
They'll
it.
need you to use less of them. So I think that actually does make some
That
sense.
would definitely be
But
the
it's like the
selling.
memory cards and they don't.
The memory cards are the
Memory cards
problems
are
more
worth
than the
money.
machines themselves, you think?
I think it's they don't have the memory cards. We have 80 memory cards or more that they wanted.
So they have memory cards, but you cannot purchase new memory cards.
So
ours become more valuable, don't they?
Appreciating its value.
they are.
Let's just hold
So,
on.
and they even do the maintenance on the memory cards is incredibly expensive. It's like $250 to send them to the company for the maintenance. Times there's 400 plus
Send those
precincts.
memory cards, Amanda, we need to look at them. Good
Well,
price
by
for them.
2022, these machines are going to be collector's items,
They might be already.
this is ridiculous.
So how, obviously this is kind of a delicate dance for us. I think I would have told you 2 years ago, we did not have a very good relationship with the State Division of Elections. I would say, Amanda and I have worked really hard to repair this relationship before we got here. And it's better, and now I would say it is the best it has ever been. But I don't know how exactly, it feels a little political to me, and I try to be careful about that. So if you want to help us navigate this, we would appreciate it.
I'm perfectly willing to let politics stay out of good process that's working, and it does seem like it's working, but the Division of Elections is not going to be able to do this alone. So there's going to be a higher level, no matter how coordinated you are, if the state isn't convinced or shamed into doing this at a legislative and administrative level, I've seen a lot of good process get wasted because it doesn't get the high level support it needs. So, and I just haven't seen, governor or legislative recognition of this issue, of this problem, or any sense of trying to deal with it, either apolitically or politically, just dealing with it at all.
Well, I think we need to at least let the chairs of the state affairs committees in the House and the Senate make sure that they're aware that we're extremely concerned and the reasons why we're extremely concerned. So, because those are the committees that would be handling, the change if there was a legislative change to allow vote by mail in Anchorage or other, jurisdictions in the state.
Isn't there a way to do what he said with still complimenting or at least not throwing under the bus the
Yes.
state? Like saying, they're doing everything possible, but this is coming, and we can help, and we're working together and all that good stuff.
How about if I get the documents from the elections policy work group to you, and you can take a look at those documents,
It would be
and
nice.
then maybe some type of maybe I need to ask, we have another meeting in July, and maybe I should ask at that meeting, we're working on legislation for the assembly to approve, and you've already approved several things already. So I could ask the question, what is the plan for going to the legislature to get approval for this new system? So I could ask that question in July. And then I wonder if if you want to take the materials that I send to you and prepare a cover letter with those materials to the people that you're talking about.
And it probably needs to I mean, we want to be ready and know what we're doing for your success. That is, we think it'll be a success in April, and the springboard that is after that, hey, we're now ready to help. It's a little overpromising before you've even done the November test or the April real test to say we've got it wired and you don't. I know you do, but it's really preparing for a April-May discussion of, you know, we've come over and it worked. Now what do you guys do?
And they may not have any clue as to what all this
question?
entails, this switch to vote by mail. It's not as easy as just going over to the post office and
Register.
sending out some ballots.
Right.
You know, Mr. Training.
Barbara, let's say we do vote by mail in the bush. They have to have the ballots in their language.
That is true.
And that's going to be another problem because a whole lot of different languages primarily used by those people out there. So you'd have to have that structured into it.
The language access is one of the priorities for the election policy work group.
Right. Well, I mean, they typically do print these ballots in the local languages, so it's not like they've never done that before.
No, but
But it
you
would
have to
be-
program it into it.
But if you're going to do vote by mail, it'd have to be done far enough advance so that the printers would have the information so they could print those ballots. So
Yeah.
it could become problematic. Yeah, Amanda.
I hear through the chair what Dick is saying about the language access, and the state doesn't have to reinvent the wheel on that. King County, which we've worked closely with, they have, I think, maybe up to 7 or 8 languages now that they provide information. They track it in their voter registration database. You know, if somebody wants it in Spanish, and then all of their materials go out in that because it's tracked already. And so that technology is out there and is already being used. And so I think that we can sort of we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that.
No, I just want to make sure we're cognizant of it's not just Spanish and German. We're talking Aboriginal languages for some of these villages that there's not that many speakers, but they want to have it in their own language.
Well, and yeah,
And they're under, court order. Natalie Landreth with NARF is the one that sued him, so.
She knows all
and
that.
won, so, and she's on the group, so there is, and obviously Liz Medicine Pro, there are some groups on the task force, they're holding the Division of Elections feet to the fire.
Thank you.
So I will just do what I've proposed, to get you the materials and to ask about the question about legislation. And I will, continue to await your guidance. I do think that Mr. Croft is right that
Once we get this working.
one of the comments that I've heard is we're watching you.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
And if we're successful, then we're all going vote by mail.
Good.
And I just happened to think of one additional thing. We've got a conference in Haines for the Alaska Municipal League coming up in August. Is vote by mail something that the municipality of Anchorage would like me to bring up? I'm on the executive board.
Did you know what, Pete? I would like to ask you to bring it up at AML in November.
November, okay.
Because we'll have finished, we better check and make sure.
it'll be coinciding. It's the same day as banquet.
Are you sure? Should we do it the week earlier? Yeah, we'll move it to the 7th so that we can report at AML. Okay?
Okay.
I actually can tell you ahead of time that the clerks, the municipal clerks are going to have a special meeting on the Saturday before conference just to talk about vote by mail. So they're going to, the election policy work group, they'll just update them about that on the Saturday before. So we could have something for the AML board or whoever you need it for.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I think we had a fantastic meeting today. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to participate? I don't see anyone, so I think we'll gavel this out. Thank you.